Example 3, under sequences, a sequence is given by un equals to 1 out of n square for n equals to 1, 2, 3, and it continues. Part A says, find the first 4 terms. The first 4 terms. So the solution to A, that is the first 4 terms, we are given the formula un as 1 out of n squared. And n can be 1, 2, 3, depending on the number at a given position that you are looking for. So for the first term where n is 1. So for first term, we shall simply say the first term u1 equals to 1 out of n squared. What is n? Our n is 1 in this case. So we shall say it is 1 out of 1 but squared. What is 1 squared? That is 1. 1 divided by 1, we get 1. So our first term is 1. Then we go to the second term. That is u2, for which n is 2. So our second term u2 becomes 1, use the formula 1 out of n squared. That is the same as 1 out of n. What is our n in this case? Our n is 2. So it is 1 out of 2 squared. 1 out of 2 squared is the same as 1 out of 4, because 2 squared is 4. So our second term u2 is 1 out of 4. What about the third term, u3? Third term u3. Third term u3, our n should be 3. That is the position, so that we get the number at that position, n equals to 3. And therefore, our third term u3 becomes, the formula is 1 out of 3 squared, because our n is now 3. And this gives us 1 out of 9, right? This gives us 1 out of 9, because 3 squared is 9. That is the third term. Then finally, fourth term, that is u4, for which n must be 4. Then our u4 becomes 1 out of 4, which is n squared. We simply substitute for n as that number 4. 4 squared is 16, so we shall have 1 out of 16 as our fourth term. Remember, you can also express them in decimal as long as they are non-recurring decimals, or when they are terminating decimals. But if they are recurring or non-terminating, leave it in fraction. Alright, so part A was the first 4 terms that we have got, and therefore we just come and conclude by saying first 4 terms are, then you come and copy. The first term was 1, second term is 1 out of 4, third term is 1 out of 9, fourth term is 1 out of 16. These are the first 4 terms that the question requested that we find for part A. What about part B? Part B says, what is the 10th term? In other words, what is the number in position 10 of this series, of this sequence rather? This implies that our n, here it implies that our n should simply our n should simply be 10. That is the implication. So for part B, the 10th term is simply u10. And for us to find u10, our n must be equal to 10. And then we follow the same formula that was given as un equals to 1 out of n squared. Therefore, our 10th term, u10, becomes 1 out of n. N is 10. And then squared. What is 10 squared? Press your calculator. 10 squared is 100. So we shall have 1 out of 100. And this is our 10th term. If you want to write in decimal, you get 0.01. This is the 10th term, but the choice is yours. The simplest one is always leave it in fractions. It doesn't make you prone to errors of expressing in decimal and being tempted to round. The moment you round, you have already made an error. We have a list of videos in Senior 3 Mathematics where we talk about error and approximation. Otherwise, this is example 3 under sequences, and the materials are only found on Vision Plus channel.